Good evening. I'd like to call the Litchfield Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting to order at 7:02 on July 15th. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll start with attendance and roll call. George, we'll start with you. Just introduce yourself and your status as a member.
George Lavash, voting member, present.
John Devereaux, full member.
Zach Schneider, alternate.
Laura Gandia, full member.
Steve Perry, full member.
All right, so Zach, we're going to appoint you as a full member for this evening. And the next thing we're going to look at is regional impacts for all the cases that we have. Does anybody have any questions on regional impact? No? Does anybody have an opinion as to, I believe none of these cases are developments of regional impact. Is there any disagreement or further discussion?
No.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion that the board finds that all cases listed on the agenda tonight are not developments of regional impact.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we're going to jump right into the cases. The first case on the agenda is case number 07172023-1. This is a rehearing. It's a variance from LZO Article 310 to construct a building within the 50-foot building setback from a right-of-way in the residential district. This case has been continued numerous times. Owner and applicants are Leon and Maria Dutton. Location of the property is 9 Woodhawk Way, Litchfield, map 8, lot 124, and who will be presenting?
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. My name is Andy Perlman, attorney with Prunier and Perlman of Nashua. With me at the table tonight is Leon Dutton, owner of 9 Woodhawk here in Litchfield. And we have a variance case to present to you. And I have a handout for the board. I'm happy to count out 5 packets.
Long time coming.
Thank you. Some of you.
Thank you.
I can't count. I got 2. You have 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some of you may be familiar with this application, others are not, so I'll just give an overview. We are located, can we have a plan? Can we get a plan up on that screen? No?
I think we can. Let's hurry up.
Okay.
You want any one of these?
Yeah, probably that one that the cursor's on, in the upper left. Yep.
That would be good. That would be
Yeah.
good.
So we are located at 9 Woodhawk Way. The Duttons have owned this property since the mid-1970s. And we are in the residential district. We are abutting Campbell High School property to the south of us, to the rear. Woodhawk Way residential properties all around us. We have Dara Pond, kind of kitty corner across the street, just to set the location. What's unique about this particular site is that the Duttons abut a paper street. When the, forgive me, I forget the name of the subdivision. When the subdivision was originally laid out in the 1970s, a plan being signed by none other than Ed Albuquerque. You'll see in my packet I have Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds Plan number 9989. It looks like this. It's an old plan from the 70s. The Duttons lot is on the south side of Woodhawk. It is lot number 99 on that plan. And you can see right next to lot 99, there's a paper street. There's a right-of-way that extends from Woodhawk. And originally, the thinking was, more likely than not, the thinking was there would be a future residential subdivision on the Campbell family property. As we all know, there's no subdivision there. There's a high school with ball fields. The what do they call that, with the batting cage, right? We're all familiar with that, that part of town. So that's the lay of the land. And so what the Duttons want to do is they want to install a shed for a one-car shed. It's a very small garage for their automobile. And what we have with the site, it's difficult to see there, but where the shed is located is the only, or is proposed to be located, is the only place that the shed could go on the lot. Because the house takes up the, say, the right-hand side of the lot. As you move further back onto the lot, you have the pool and a pool shed back there. And so the only place that the Duttons could locate, thank you, that's very helpful, is to have the shed right along the setback, but it's a setback to a paper street. And you can see I had a sketch. I had drafted out a sketch, just roughly looks like that. So when we have two front setbacks, we're really eating up a large chunk of the lot. We have the 50-foot front yard setback in the residential district, and because this is a street, even though it's a paper street, we have a 50-foot setback off of the paper street, as was determined by, I've already forgot his name, Jeff Blackwell. Okay. I have too many cases in my head. And so where the shed is located, the Duttons really thought that it really would have little to no impact on the neighborhood because that's a paper street. And that has been a paper street since at least 1976, when the plan number 9989 was approved. Now, having said that, I am going to run through the variance criteria, but I also wanted to just testify as a witness, if I may, because at least 3 out of the 4 of you know that I was a longtime resident of the town. I sat on the planning board, I sat on the zoning board for many, many years, and I happened to be on the planning board when Campbell High School was approved and built out in the late 1990s. Campbell opened in 2000. And I was on the planning board when we had a courtesy presentation of when Campbell High School, the site plan was being prepared and proposed. And I can tell you, and for those who may remember, at no time was there ever a plan to use this paper street right away. Now remember, the paper street right away was really intended for future residential development on the Campbell property, if it ever got developed into subdivisions. When Campbell was going through their permitting, not their permitting process, but when they were going through their approval process, at no time did they ever contemplate using this paper street. Just never. And they have 3 points of access, 2 along Albuquerque and 1 on Talent. And some of you may remember that the access on Talent was actually a 2-way entrance when the Campbell first opened. But then over time, they realized it would be better if they put a temporary gate or a bus gate, and so it was really just a 1-way access. So there's plenty of access for all the students and staff at Campbell. Furthermore, this paper street leads directly into the baseball field and the batting cages, and I believe there are a small set of bleachers or stands back on this portion of the Campbell High School site. There's a letter in there in your packet from the school district. But I would ask you folks to honestly consider, do we really think Campbell High School is ever going to use this paper street? Like, what is the chance that's really going to happen? And if there is if you think there is an outside chance, I suggested in my reconsideration request letter, and I put it into the packet tonight, that perhaps there are some conditions of approval that you folks would consider with respect to use of that paper street. If, in the unlikely chance it ever got developed for Campbell High School, then we could come back to you to re-permit the shed or remove the shed, or alternatively, initially there were, when this was first before you, when the Duttons were presenting this case, there was some concerns about safety, If the roadway was ever installed, the shed would be right up, very close to the roadway. And so we suggest perhaps a guardrail or some type of barrier if there's truly a safety concern. But again, it is our belief, it is our true understanding that that paper street is never going to get used. So there's the hardship. He wants, the Duttons, Maria and Leon want to install just a small garage for one car, and they have no other place to put it other than in the setback again, along a paper street. So we would ask you to consider the likelihood of that paper street ever getting used and it's not even, frankly, it's not even used as a cut-through for kids. I mean, kids aren't, there was a point in that letter from the school district that kids cut through, making their way to school. Mr. Dutton will tell you that's not true. Kids don't cut through. You can see pictures of it, but there's no beaten down trail in that section on the paper street. There's no use of that paper street other than just overgrowth and trees. Mr. Dutton has talked to his neighbor on 7 Woodhawk. It's our understanding there's no objection, and they are in the same boat. If they want to do something with their property, they likewise have a 50-foot setback off of the paper street, which I believe actually cuts right into down the middle of their driveway. So what happens here is, this was done back in the 70s. Zoning changes over time, and so we have an odd situation where we're being kind of held back from using the property as a result of a paper street that's, we don't see that's going to be used. So with that, Madam Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I was going to touch on the variance criteria.
Does the board have any questions, or would you like for Attorney Pullman to go through the variance criteria first?
I have a question.
Sure.
You do say that that's the only place it could go, right? Is it the shed that's directly off the driveway? That's a shed as well, right? It's not a permanent building? So you can see there's, along the driveway to the slight to the, we have that right there.
Yep.
And there's distance between the house and that shed.
What does that shed have in it?
What was the question?
What does that shed have in it? Does regular yard stuff?
Yeah, it's regular, lawnmower, that type of thing.
Okay.
So that's existing, that's there today. And so you could replace that, I guess in theory, but, we're proposing to add a new, small shed right along the, in the setback.
And the right-of-way paper street setback is 50 feet. A normal lot line setback is 20 feet.
A side setback is 20 feet.
Right. And you're asking for 4 feet?
To reduce the setback down to 4 feet. That's correct.
From 20
4 feet or
50
6?
to
It says
6 feet.
6.
Right.
No,
You're correct.
you want it to be 4 feet off the lot line, right?
No, hang
No.
on one sec.
I think it's 6,
You're
Oh,
correct.
6?
Yeah.
but that's close.
Oh, this one
It is
shows,
6 feet.
Yeah.
oh, this one shows 4 on one of the other.
One of them showed 4, I
filings, yeah.
apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
So you're looking for a
This-
Is it 4
44
or 6?
encroachment.
Yes.
So they want to encroach 44 feet into the 50-foot front setback.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
But again, it's a front setback off a paper street that,
Right, yeah.
in our belief, you may differ with, you may not agree with that, my proposal, but we don't see that it's ever going to get used. The Duttons have never been approached by any property owner, the Campbell family or Campbell High School, to use that paper street. We think it's an unnecessary burden on the Dutton family.
This is probably fresh or something.
Yeah, is this one?
Any other questions before we go through the variance criteria?
What's the size of the shed?
It is, what did you say, 20 by
12 by 22.
12 by 22?
Right.
Oh, it's on the same sheet.
Any other questions?
Not yet.
No, 6 feet. So with that, Madam Chair, we don't see that we're affecting the public interest criteria of the variance under the statute. New Hampshire case law says that we must not conflict with the implicit purpose of the statute and must not alter the public health, safety, or public rights of the neighborhood or alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And we don't see that we're doing that. Many of the homes around us have sheds large and small. The Dutton shed, the shed itself will not alter the character of the neighborhood. It will fit with the character of the neighborhood. With the extreme, what we believe to be an extreme unlikelihood of a road ever being built, it's not fair to hold the Duttons back to a just simple shed. And we don't see that to be any public rights affected or threaten any safety issues or welfare of the town. New Hampshire case law similarly holds with the spirit of the ordinance that we must not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, threaten public health, safety, or welfare. And again, the intent of the setback ordinance, just in general, is to prevent overcrowding, to prevent neighbors encroaching upon each other and kind of create some space. And we are doing that because while we are encroaching into the setback, we're encroaching into the paper street setback. And we don't see that we're going to be violating the spirit or intent of the ordinance because the neighbor at 7 Woodhawk is, we'll probably see this in the wintertime when the leaves are down, but won't see it in the summertime. It's, thick vegetation. We don't see that there's going to be any overcrowding or encroachment onto any of the neighbors at 7 or any of the other neighbors. We believe that we have substantial justice being presented because this will significantly benefit the Dutton family, at the same time being with little to no impact on the town when we weigh the balancing test of the substantial justice criteria. We see no impact to the town, while we have a benefit to the Duttons. Property values, I don't believe are at issue. They weren't at issue when this case was originally presented. We don't see that the shed will impact any property values. And frankly, this is a classic hardship case. This is a classic double frontage lot. There are a number of, there are a couple of double frontage lots throughout the town, but when you're subjected to two 50-foot front yard setbacks, that's not fair to one neighbor, whereas the next neighbor over from me doesn't have that same condition. Very common variance request based upon a double frontage, and it's even more so when the double frontage is based upon a paper street that frankly is, we don't see that it's going to be used. We are proposing a reasonable use, a residential use. A shed is a reasonable use in a residential district, very common. I'm sure we all have them. I have one in my yard. I think about it, I was probably in the side yard setback, but I won't tell anyone. We think we have a reasonable use. We have a classic double frontage variance request, and even more so with respect to the paper street. And again, I suggest that you review the conditions of approval if you're willing to consider this application. We believe that if by any remote chance a road does go through, is installed in there, I propose some conditions that we can protect both the town and the Duttons in the future. But again, we don't see that likelihood ever coming to light. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Madam Chair, members?
Any questions for the applicant? Steve, any questions?
So, where the trees are on the right-hand side,
Yep.
would it be placed in that area?
No. Further down the driveway,
Yep.
So right about there.
yeah.
It'd be behind the current shed,
No.
No,
Right alongside of it.
Next to.
next to.
It's close to the current shed. I was out there last month.
And you won't have to clear any of those trees?
No.
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 No, all the trees are on the town right-of-way. And the Duttons have cleared up to and they maintain, you can see there's a row of rocks or bushes on the right-hand side.
Yep.
Right, that's all theirs, and it would be tucked right along there.
So that's the edge of their property there?
Yep. Yep. and
So
it's-
essentially, the
it's-
shed they have now is in the right of way.
I wouldn't disagree.
No, no.
It's inside the
Not at all.
setback.
No, it's inside the setback, that's what he's saying, not the right.
That's
the right of way.
That's a very old picture, too.
I think that's what he meant, right? It's
Yeah,
in
not-
the right of way.
Yeah.
Setback, setback.
Setback.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So that's a non-conforming structure. That shed is non-conforming then.
Well, I don't know when it was installed, and, you know, you might have an issue with when that shed was installed and when the ordinance changed to a 50-foot setback over time. Remember, this goes back to the 70s. But it could be, it may well be. But it's deceptive, that picture is deceptive because we all think of the, you know, our yards extend to our neighbor's yard, but then we get the right-of-way right in the middle.
I mean, essentially, this is it's not even a shed, it's a garage.
It's a small garage.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Good for now.
See, the garage comes already built. They just
I'm
drop
gonna
it
open
there.
it up for public input. Is there anybody in favor of the application that wishes to speak? Is there anybody in opposition to the application that wishes to speak? Is there anybody with any questions that wishes to speak? All right, there's none. What we do have is a letter from well, it's addressed to the school district, to Dr. Michael Jetty, that was sent to us by the school district, for this case. And has everybody had a chance to see this and review it?
Thank you.
Have you seen that, Steve?
Yes, it did.
I'll give you a second to look at that, and then I just wanna get it finished. Everything's good.
What do you think about that letter?
Wow, I should have read this before.
It's a long one.
If we may, we'd like to speak to that letter. but-
In 1 second.
Yep.
So I'm gonna read this, into the record. It is, Dear Superintendent Jetty, Leon and Maria Dutton applied for a variance from section 310 of the Litchfield zoning ordinance to construct a shed 4 or 6 feet from a public right-of-way. The zoning ordinance, section 310, requires a 50-foot setback from all public rights-of-ways in residential zones and a 20-foot side setback. The public right-of-way leads from Woodhawk Way to Campbell High School property. The public right-of-way is also shown on the plan for Dara Village subdivision recorded in Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds as Plan 9989, Sheet 5-8. A copy of the plan is attached. It is unclear what the size of the proposed structure will be because the Dutton's application includes a 24 by 27 sketch from Stolfus Structures LLC and a 12 by 22 proposed shed on a map of the lot. The Dutton's lot is 1.12 acres, see Exhibit B, assessor's card. According to the assessor's card, the Duttons have 3 wooden sheds on the property in a greenhouse poly, see Exhibit B. The proposed shed is actually a garage that Mr. Dutton will use to store a vehicle. A neighbor, Hugh Killeran, stated in an email to the ZBA that the variance is to construct a building to his house, to house his prized Corvette. The proposed shed location in the Dutton's application shows the shorter side of the 12-foot parallel to the lot line and the longer 22-foot side extending from the lot line into the property. If the proposed shed is repositioned so that the longer side parallels the side lot line, the shed could be moved further from the lot line. Photos submitted to the ZBA by the Duttons show only a shed and a poly top structure with a Corvette inside. Presumably, the top structure is the structure to be replaced with the new shed, which is essentially a garage. In order to obtain a variance, the Duttons must demonstrate that they meet all the following 5 criteria in RSA 674-33, Roman numeral 1A2. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, substantial justice is done, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished, and literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. Unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from others in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. If those factors for unnecessary hardship are not established, an unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if and only if owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the property cannot reasonably be used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it. RSA 673:33, Roman numeral 1B2. In their applications, the Duttons give similar reasons why each of the variance factors were met. The proposed shed would not impede access to the use of the easement and will enhance the appearance of the property. The Duttons' reasons do not meet the first, second, third, and fifth variance factors. In order to receive a variance, the Duttons must meet all 5 factors. The first 2 variance factors, the public interest and the spirit of the ordinance criteria, are related. I'm not going to read the citations. To be contrary to the public interest, the variance must unduly and in a marked degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance basic zoning objectives. In determining whether granting a variance violates an ordinance basic zoning objectives, the ZBA reviews whether the variance would alter the essential character of the locality or threaten public health, safety, or welfare. The purpose of the variance is to allow for a waiver of the strict letter of the zoning ordinance without sacrifice to its spirit and purpose. The purpose of the setback requirement is to prevent overcrowding and safety issues. The town zoning ordinance lists purposes of the ordinance, which include securing safety from fires, panic, and other dangers, providing adequate light, air, preventing overcrowding of land. Zoning ordinance section 100. The basic zoning objectives and setback requirements are violated by a 44-foot variance. The right-of-way on the plan is 50 feet, which is required by the town's public and private road designs requirement. The setback is not determined from the paved portion of any road. The Duttons have not submitted any evidence that homes in the neighborhood have sheds or garages within 4 or 6 feet of the lot line. In fact, the minimum side and rear setback for sheds of 200 square feet or less is 10 feet. See zoning order section 310. The proposed variance would alter the essential character of the neighborhood, overcrowd the lot, and impact safety. The third variance factor is substantial justice will be done by granting the variance. In determining whether substantial justice factor is met, the guiding principle is that any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. The Campbell High School property, see Exhibit C, assessors card is 38 acres. The high school campus has access on Albuquerque Ave. The right-of-way abutting the Duttons property is the second means of access, which is currently used by the students. Placing what essentially is a garage only 4 or 6 feet away from the right-of-way impacts the use of the right-of-way for the public and the school. If a road is developed on the right-of-way, the garage would be too close to the road for safe travel. Those interests outweigh the Duttons' interest to replace one shed garage with another to house their prized Corvette. The Duttons have not met the hardship requirement. They have not asserted any special condition of their property which distinguishes from others in the area. The uniqueness of the land and not the plight of the owner determines whether a hardship exists. The personal circumstances of the owner do not create a hardship. In the Duttons' October 6, 2023 letter on their rehearing request, they contend that special condition is that they are subject to 2 frontage setbacks. However, the plan for the Duttons subdivision indicates in the subdivisions alone that there are 6 50-foot right-of-ways, and the lots on either side all have 2 frontage setbacks. See Exhibit A, sheets 5 through 8, 6 through 8, and 8 through 8. There's nothing unique about the Duttons parcel. Moreover, the property is 1.12 acres. The Duttons have other locations for the proposed shed that comply with the setbacks, including the other side of the driveway, near the house, or in the backyard. The Duttons can also reposition the proposed shed to make it more conforming with the setbacks. The Duttons do not need to construct a driveway to access the proposed garage in the backyard. The convenience to the Duttons of placing the proposed shed within 4 or 6 feet of the side lot lines is not an unnecessary hardship. For this reason, the ZBA should deny the Duttons variance. If you have any questions, please let me know. Sincerely, Diane M. Garrow from Sol Leslie Kidder, Sayward, in Lowman, 220 Main Street, Salem, New Hampshire. Does the board have any questions about that letter? And Attorney Pullman, you did receive that letter, and you had a
Did.
chance to review it, and I know you would like to comment, so please do.
Well, a couple things. Something missing from that letter. But first of all, just getting to some of the comments in that letter. The attorney for the school or district is correct. The purpose of setback requirements is to prevent overcrowding and safety issues. The proposed shed that we have, the small garage for the car, is not going to overcrowd or create safety issues. The neighbor at 7 Woodhawk is not going to be impacted. The likelihood of a road being installed, and even if a road is installed, the road widths are 24 to 28 feet wide. Typically run down the center of a right-of-way. We're not going to be having any safety issues. We're not overcrowding our neighbors. We don't believe that we are changing the essential character of the neighborhood. There are sheds all over Litchfield residential lots. We don't see that we're overcrowding our lot, or again, impacting safety. The statement that the right-of-way that we're talking about provides a second means of access is simply not true. First of all, they have 3 points of access into Campbell High School. And for those of you who have been in town for some time, you have not heard one peep about using this right-of-way to get to Campbell High School. They say it's currently used by students. That's not true. Mr. Dutton will tell you that students do not cut through there. You can see that there's no trail or beaten-down pathway to get there. Again, that's not an accurate statement. And to say that we don't have a hardship where you have a double frontage lot, again, it's a classic classic unique circumstances of a lot. Most lots in Litchfield do not have a double frontage. This one happens to. Granted, there are some others in the area, but it's a hardship to apply 2 50-foot front yard setbacks upon any one single lot. But what's missing from that letter is any statement of intent that the high school, or the school district, or the high school intends to use this right-of-way. Right? It's jumping out that it doesn't say that. They complain about the variance, but they don't say we're gonna be using this, next year, or sometime soon, all right? So, we have to be realistic. You have to be fair to the Duttons. Do we really think that right-of-way is gonna be used in any of our lifetimes, right? And if it is, again, I have suggested conditions of approval that can protect both the Duttons and the town. So that's my comment on that letter. So, other than that, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the applicant before we close public input? Would somebody make a motion to close, do you have a question, John?
No.
Make a motion to close public input?
Sure, I'll make a motion to close public input.
Second?
1 second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Any thoughts, questions, comments before we get into the criteria? As you know, this is a rehearing request from about a year and a half ago. I know, John, I think you were on the original request. But we're reviewing this as a clean slate moving forward. So what we have presented, what we see here. I do have concerns that I echoed in the past. I can go through my concerns if somebody else wants to jump in.
Let's hear yours.
My concerns, so my concerns, I do have concerns with the first variance criteria, the public interest, the health, safety. I understand that right now it's a paper road, and I appreciate Attorney Perlman's comments that it may not be developed by the school, but it may. So the school obviously is not in favor of moving forward with this. So I think putting a shed 4 feet or a garage 4 feet from the lot line causes me concern for public safeties. If that road is developed and you have school buses going in there, you have kids driving in there, you have high school students driving in there, I do have concerns for that. And that's one, the spirit of the ordinance, again, the spirit is to help with overcrowding and safety. And that's why you have 50 feet from a proposed right-of-way. So I do have the safety concerns, substantial justice. I don't think that they've met substantial justice. I think there's more of a harm to the general public by not keeping those setbacks intact, given the school property is right there, than any loss to the public. The hardship, I don't see a hardship at all, and this board and some of these members have been here when we've had corner lots before, and if we were to determine that corner lots are unique and meet the variance criteria, then every single corner lot in Litchfield will now not have to meet the fifth variance criteria. And if you look at the plan that was submitted by the applicant, you do see, several, right-of-ways going through on the side, at least two that I can see here. And I don't see where there's any uniqueness, given what was presented, and the unique factors that were presented was that it was a corner lot, and I don't think that's the uniqueness that's gonna justify us granting the variance.
I'll just add, I think there is room outside of that buffer for them to put one, so it's kind of a convenience to be putting this in that one location. So I'm not sure if it's really a hardship, because there is room to put that shed or garage in another spot without too much work.
And I do have concerns if that existing shed is already non-conforming. I mean, it may be grandfathered, we don't know when it was put in, so I'm not gonna comment on the actual status, but right now, it's not meeting the zoning, and now we're compounding it to allow another structure to be within the setback.
I would agree.
The property lot seems like there's additional space to put things in.
Did anybody wanna talk about anything else that was put in the, application packet?
No, we didn't have any.
Do you want to go through the 5 criteria like I did? We'll go through it again.
Okay.
Nope.
Alright. So, public interest. I stated my concern, about safety, especially given that this is a public right-of-way that will access, that does access the school property, and if it's ever developed, I have a lot of concerns with high school students traveling, school buses traveling, people walking, or whatever may become of that. And I know there's conflicting testimony about whether or not that's actually used by students. And when I look at it, it does look like there's a pathway there. I'm seeing where people could actually walk on that. I can't comment if they do or if they don't, but we have comments from the school saying that they do, and we have comments from the property owner saying they don't. But that obviously is still a concern for mine, that there's that possibility that they could. Any other thoughts for that?
I think that, regardless of whether they are using it or not using it, it exists, and I think we need to consider the safety factor so that, so there is public interest in keeping that right away, a right away. So I would agree with your summary.
Any concerns about altering the character of the neighborhood? I know that was mentioned in the letter from the school district, that shed would alter the character of the neighborhood by having basically 2 sheds in that garage.
I honestly don't think it would alter the character of the neighborhood simply for the fact that it would abut a wood line currently. Because if you don't know that there's a paper street there, it would fit in and just looking like you just put up another structure.
And there are plenty of detached garages and sheds on that street.
Correct.
All right, so that's 1, 2, the spirit of the ordinance. I don't believe by granting the variance, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Again, it's, the spirit of the ordinance is for safety and for setbacks. And again, I have the same concerns for 1, and as the board knows, 1 and 2 kind of correlate with each other. So they basically piggyback off each other. So all of my concerns that I expressed with 1, I would
I know which way
put to
this
2.
is going.
It's abutting a school right away.
Understood.
3, substantial justice. I do not believe that the applicant met that burden for substantial justice. Again, as I reiterated before, I think the harm to the public by not keeping that 50-foot right-of-way, 50-foot setback intact, is not outweighed by any loss to the applicant. I think it's important that we keep that intact. And again, he's asking to be only 6 feet from the right-of-way, so that's very close. So I think the loss to the public is outweighed by any gain to the applicant.
I would agree if the intent is to keep the right-of-way, that would be solely true.
And it would be even over the line if it was just a normal boundary line. It would be inside the 20 feet, even if it was just a normal boundary line.
Yep.
Property values, will there be any diminution in property values?
I don't think there really is any.
There's no effect.
Yeah, no effect.
Okay. And the 5th one is hardship. I think the first thing that the board needs to consider is whether there are any unique conditions of this property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. That's one thing, and then after that, we have to determine whether or not that uniqueness would be sufficient for us to not apply the specific variance ordinance on that application. I don't see any uniqueness on this property. What was presented to us was that it is a corner lot, and I reiterate again what I said earlier. I don't think a corner lot in this case is a unique factor that would justify us granting the variance, and there are other paper right-of-ways in other corner lots throughout that whole subdivision. And if we say that this is unique, then the guy next door can do the same thing. The guy down the road will have uniqueness as well.
I agree.
And the last part is the proposed use is a reasonable one. Having a shed. I don't think having a shed is an unreasonable use, but I think having a shed, encroaching that far into the setback is an unreasonable use.
I would agree.
All right, so with that, I can make the motion, or does somebody else want to make the motion? All right, I will make the motion. I'm gonna make a motion in, let me just find it. Agenda. I'd like to make a motion in case number 07172023-1 to deny the applicant's request for a variance from LZO Article 310 to construct a building within the 50-foot building setback from a right-of-way in the residential districts because the applicant failed to satisfy criteria 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the reasons discussed.
Second
It's
thought.
5, not 4.
Yep, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 5. Thank
Or
you,
pass with them.
as discussed. Somebody second that?
Second.
John? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Good, got it, thank you.
So stay with that.
Alright, moving on to another rehearing case. It is case number 09182023-1. It's a variance from LZO Article 800, Section 801, to permit parking in the Northern Commercial District where parking is not a permitted use. This has been continued several times as well. The name of the applicant is Ronisa Bouchard-Hannon. The owner is Ronald R. Bouchard, Ronisa Bouchard-Hannon. Location of the property is 446 Charles Bancroft Highway, map 20, lot 13, and this is also a companion case with, do you want me, are you gonna present both of them together, or are you doing them separately?
Could I do them separate?
You
if
sure can.
that's okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
yep, that's fine. So then we'll hold off on the companion case.
Awesome, thank
All
you.
right, and who will be presenting?
I am Sean Dunphy, an attorney from Cronin, Bisson, and Zelinski in Manchester. Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, this property is located at 446 Charles Bancroft Highway. Joining me tonight is Miss Ronisa Bouchard-Hannon, who is the owner of the property as trustee of the Ronald Bouchard Revocable Trust of 2020. This property is located in the Northern Commercial District. We are here tonight to request a variance from Article 801 of the Litchfield zoning ordinance, specifically to allow for parking in the Northern Commercial District where that use is not allowed per the table of uses. In the fall, Ms. Bouchard-Hannon uses her property for temporary parking for Spooky World events through Mel's Funway Park, which is a property right next door that is separated by a small driveway. Her family has used this property for parking for a number of years, over 15 about. And in that time, and now she has created a system to ensure the safety of people parking on the on her property. She has illuminated walkways to Spooky World, flaggers, and staff with walkie-talkies. And when she was here presenting this application, I believe back in September of last year, she discussed the plan is to keep people off of the Charles Bancroft Highway, and that is still the plan that she has in place today to ensure a safe access to the Spooky World property. If there are no questions based on that, can jump right into the variance criteria.
Questions?
So the pathway, is along her property?
The pathway to
Spooky
Spooky
World.
World. Yes, we've been talking with the Spooky World people who are here tonight, and coordinating a safe passage through, and that will be hashed out before the site plan review and approval process before the planning board. Here, we're just requesting that the use be allowed, and those details, we can get the feedback from the planning board, who has the jurisdiction to deal with those kind of issues. Any other questions? Or-
Didn't we already approve parking, temporary parking for this property? So why are we hearing it again?
This is a rehearing request, so there was a rehearing request that, the variance request was granted.
Okay.
With conditions. There was a request for a rehearing based on a, insufficient notice that, the legal and statutory requirements were not met. That triggered the board's decision to grant the rehearing request.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Here we are.
Okay, and yes, I know you've heard most of the variance criteria for this before, so I'll try not to belabor it too much and go through it. Number one, the variance is not contrary to the public interest. This property is located in the Northern Commercial District. It is a residential property, but the use is in line with the zone. It is a commercial use in a commercial zone. The Bouchard family has parked cars on this property for about 15 years, if not more. There has been little to no impact to health, safety, and welfare of the community. And the property is close to the Spooky World property and on the same side of the Charles Bancroft Highway, so there's no need to have people crossing that busy road to access and leave this parking area. The spirit of the ordinance prong is similar to the public interest in that we need to look at the zone. In this case, there is no alteration to the essential character of the neighborhood. It is a commercial zone. The property is near other parking areas, and the period where the parking is allowed or going to be used is for select weekends in the fall. which will limit its duration. It's only at night for select hours. The substantial justice prong, substantial justice is measured by whether the loss to the applicant in the event that the variance is denied outweighs any gain to the general public. Here, Ms. Bouchard-Hannon's family has used this property for parking in this manner for an extended period of time. They have the equipment, they've invested in safety precautions to ensure that the people who park there are safe. They have the ability to do this and they have the space to do it safely, and the public would receive no benefit in denying this variance. The public would lose a parking area that's been in existence and is one that is on the same side of the road as the event, and it is convenient. The fourth prong is the surrounding property values. There is no evidence that there would be any diminution in surrounding property values. As I said, this has been occurring for a long period of time, and similar to her use, her direct neighbor, Mr. Medina, also parks cars, and there is a parking lot nearby on the Mel's Funway property. The hardship element, this property is unique in that it is a residential property within the commercial zone. The parking operation is limited and does not overtly conflict with the stated purposes of the zoning ordinance in that it is a commercial zone. And it is close to where the event will take place for the people parking. So it is a special condition of where the property is located, and the use is reasonable because the property is large enough for the parking. I know I've said it a lot, but it is a commercial zone, and it is open enough to ensure the safety of those using the area. So in conclusion, Ms. Bouchard-Hannon requests that the board grant this variance so that she may continue providing parking for limited weekends during the Spooky World event.
Thank you. Questions from the board? I have a couple, if you want to. So is this the property right here that I'm looking at?
Yes,
So let me just scoot over. So she's living there and using it as a residential property?
correct, yes.
And where would the parking go?
In the front yard, as well as the side yard and the very back.
So let me just go. I'm not gonna be able to flip it.
In the front, it's almost a horseshoe, how we park cars.
Okay.
So there's plenty of space for people to back up and,
So, this is your house, right?
Yes.
And so it's gonna be right here,
correct?
and now you said around the back,
There's space in the front as well, in front of those structures, which.
right here, yeah?
Yep, and through there, and then behind where that body of water is, behind the pond.
Oh, so it'll go all the way?
Yes, yep, they drive down the side driveway between Rose and I, to the back, and we park them again in a shape.
And-
Line one side and the other.
And
We
how,
have never had any problems with accidents
Okay.
or anything like that in the years that we've been parking.
thank you, and how large is the property?
Oh, that I don't know exactly.
Or
I
actually-
believe it's just under 3.
Yeah, actually, I have a 2.7 acres.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
And how big is the pond?
Now, I don't really know.
That's a
I'm
question for
sorry.
you, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that I cannot answer at this time. And the pond is in a fenced-in area, so there's no access, there's no problems with anybody getting close to the water.
So you mentioned that you had a way for people to go from your property to Spooky World. Can you explain that?
In the front yard,
I'm just gonna bring this guy over here. Let's see if I can drop him again.
Yeah, so right now we're hashing out the final details, and the folks from Spooky World are here, so they can correct me if I say anything
Sure.
wrong, but, our goal is to make sure that people are not on Charles Bancroft Highway when they're getting there. So, we're still figuring out the details, and that's part of the planning board, site plan review that we're gonna be doing too, is to get feedback from them, so, but yes, we're not planning on having anyone go on the actual highway, and that would be the goal, it's not safe.
So in the front, are they gonna be walking like right here, where my cursor is?
yes, the actual opening is kind of where that gazebo is, it's almost
So, yeah, it's
Oh,
in
right
where
the-
the
here?
white gazebo is, right behind that there, would
So
be
they
an
would park,
opening.
and they would walk across this way into Mills?
Correct, and the people from the back walk to the front as well, all through the property, not on the street.
So for the back, 'cause I see this fence here, I thought there was a way for them to go
There's
around.
an opening right there in the fence, yeah.
Oh,
We
oh, right here, they
opened-
can go right
yeah,
here?
we opened right here,
Okay,
yes.
so they would come in and then go
Correct.
around this fence right here and go around to the back?
No,
that what's
that's all it's a little interesting, but, no, they drive down the back driveway,
Okay,
park their car, and follow the way they drove in out to the front.
so they wouldn't go from the back through, like where the pond is, they're not going that way, they're
Not at
coming
all.
back around
Correct.
to the front by the gazebo that way?
Yes. Everyone travels in that same direction to go to Spooky Road.
And how many cars are you requesting to park?
About 150.
So there's no path to the event on the back side of the property? They all have to go to the front?
Yes, Spooky
'Cause you-
Road has fenced in the whole back.
Your existing plan shows a path in the back as well as,
Because that is what the original plan was going to
Okay.
be,
No problem.
and Spooky Road denied access there.
okay.
Are you using the same location to exit the parking as you are for people entering the parking?
Yes.
So this is still your property here?
Right to the very end
Of
of the
that.
last column.
So then we have this road here. What is this?
Strawberry Lane,
And that's a public right-of-way for the town? That's not a private road?
it's a private road.
It is a private road.
It's owned by Spooky Road, yes, by KBT.
And so when they cross over Strawberry Lane, they're just gonna come onto this grassy area? Is
No,
that the
they go
plan?
right onto Strawberry Lane.
Onto Strawberry Lane, and where does
Yes.
that take them?
They would walk back down towards the ticket booth. It takes, they have a pathway.
So back
Spooky
here,
World has a path, yes, it's
so
back.
way back where I can't see.
Yeah.
So there's a path going down Strawberry Lane that has a ticket booth?
Strawberry Lane is a paved driveway. People walk down that, and then, they would go straight across, and Spooky World has a gravel, or I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but they have walkways and paths to their ticket booth.
Back over in this area where my cursor is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
Behind the building, yes, behind this.
okay.
They
Thank
walk
you.
that way.
Any other questions?
You direct traffic in, but are you there through when everybody leaves as well, directing
Yes.
them? Okay.
I reside on the property, so, yes.
So my only question is about the access to Spooky World, and if it's been, we need to hear from them, I think, to,
I think they are here,
Right.
so we'll see what happens. If they're not here, then.
Yeah.
Any other questions? on the board? Did you want to respond to anything that we said before I open it up for public input?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to open it up for public input. Is there anybody here in favor of the application that wishes to speak? Is there anybody here in opposition to the application that wishes to speak? Please come forward and state your name.
Should we vote?
Morgan, if you want to sit right there, that's fine. The board has no objection to this.
no, we can sit there.
Perfect spot.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the zoning board. My name is Morgan Hollis. I'm an attorney at Gottesman and Hollis, 39 East Pearl Street in Nashua. Excuse me, I'm here this evening representing Richard Charbonneau as the trustee of his revocable trust. Mr. Charbonneau is a property owner, not a direct abutter, but he owns property across the street from the location and diagonally away. It is directly across from the Mel's property, but not directly across from the subject property here this evening. I just want to remind the board, the ask this evening, the variance request, is to allow parking on a private property. It is not a permitted use. Everything is zoned northern commercial, but parking is not a permitted use in northern commercial or in any other portion of the town. Parking accessory to a principal use is allowed, but the principal use on this property is residential. So they are asking to expand the non-conforming use, non-conforming being residential, a use that's existed for a long time, and they're asking to expand it to a non-conforming use, a use, as I say, not even on the permitted uses list. And there's a good reason why it's not on the permitted uses list. The town doesn't want lots being used for parking lots which don't have anything to do with the principal use of that property. This has been an issue, ongoing issue about Mel's, and Mel's has worked very hard to align their property and acquire property so that they have adequate parking on the site. And this is going to be contrary to all the hard work that's been done to this date by my client and working with Mel's to get Mel's in compliance. As some of you may know, my client fought long and hard at this board, the zoning board, and the planning board to try to limit Mel's, and in turn pointed out that there are other unlawful uses of the property, including this long-time use of parking by the applicant. The applicant, in fact, is trying to leverage the long-time illegal use of their property for parking into a hardship argument. That is, because we've been doing it, if you don't let us do it, it's going to be a hardship on us, and that is not a lawful hardship argument. You have to treat this as if this is a residential use, which is non-conforming and has been there for a long time, and in fact now they want to make it more non-conforming by a use that's not permitted. You can't treat it as if they've been doing this for a long time. I recognize they have, but this board has to look at it as if this use does not exist and never existed. You may also recall that my client owned the property across from Mel's that had been a parking lot and came in and argued that there was no other reasonable use and they wanted to try to change it to residential, which is more in character with what's out there. There are 6, 7 other house lots that are residential right in the immediate neighborhood, and the zoning board denied it, determined that there were other uses within northern commercial that could be permitted and could be used. So now we have 3 lots with proposed use for contractors' units with an accessory dwelling. As soon as my client attempts to comply with the ordinance and put residential use, which is accessory to a contractor's unit, now we come in with applicants that have perfectly good use as residential, long-time non-conforming use, and they want to increase the non-conformity, put another non-permitted use. Granted, it's only a limited time, but the important aspect here is once this first lot goes, the second lot is now the second case to come before you. Then there'll be the third lot. Then there could be the fourth lot. Every time there is an expansion of a non-conforming use, it makes it easier to argue, hey, I'm a unique piece of property because I'm affected by the parking next door. At some point, does the board just simply say, everybody can have 10 nights of parking, and that's where we're headed. And that's what we're opposed to. This use will adversely impact my client's property during the time of use for the parking. There'll be more driveways, more parking lots, no sidewalk, and my client and the successor title owners of the contractor shops will be arriving back at their shop at peak traffic time, where 2 more parking lots are going to be added if they were granted variances. I'm going to go through the criteria, and I want to pass out, I think it's easier if I just pass out some plans first so that everybody sees the last site plan of Mel's.
Thank you.
So this is just the last site plan of Mel's and it gives a good orientation, and if you look at the site plan, you'll be able to see some markings that have been placed on this site plan. The Bouchard's lot, it's highlighted, it's lot 13, it's highlighted in yellow, and immediately adjacent to it will be the next case that you will hear, which is lot 12, and that's also highlighted in yellow. The existing driveways in that area are highlighted in red, and my client's lot is highlighted in green, so you can see the general location. You can also see it's in an area where Charles Bancroft has a fairly straight shot, so there's good visibility for the main driveways of Mel's, and in fact, good visibility for the driveways accessing my client's property, although they're limited in that area to only 2 driveways. When you make the corner headed southerly on Charles Bancroft Highway, leaving Mel's, you'll see there's less of a good site visibility, and in particular, a worse site visibility for lot 12. But the reason for the highlights is to show all the activity that occurs. You've got Mel's with 3 driveways on the west side, and on the east side, you're going to have 4 driveways, 2 of which are Mel's, that's map 20, lot 14, and lot 16, 2 of which are my client's. And so in that very area, you have lots of driveway activity at the time that they want this parking to occur in the evening. I would also point out, as I mentioned, there are 3 other residential lots there. You can see them on the plan, immediately adjacent in the same area, and the concern I raised is once a variance is granted on one, I know each variance is unique, but if the argument is I'm next to a parking field, pretty soon it's just going to tumble on down. There's no reason that everybody shouldn't be allowed to park in their yard during that time. I also want to pass out for the board in support of our opposition. This is a letter which was written to Mel's Funway by Benjamin Sargent, the chief of police. It's dated January 7th. And the second paragraph, while he says he's had no issues with Mel's, he goes on to say the police department did observe traffic obstruction as a result of the off-site parking of vehicles at 446 Charles Bancroft Highway. Members of the department have repeatedly advised the parking attendants at this location to direct cars drive to the back of their parking lot in order to collect money for parking. It has been noted that their failure to comply with our direction results in slowage and at times stoppage of traffic on the Charles Bancroft Highway. So getting to the 5 points that have been argued and presented by the applicant. Number 1, will allowing parking alter the character of the neighborhood? As I mentioned, my client fought long and hard to prevent parking everywhere where they were parking off-site with no variances and pushed Mel's to do site plans, make sidewalks, add lighting, and improve safety. This proposal, without any restrictions, puts parking anywhere on the lot. You heard the applicant testify to the applicant's attorney, and the applicant testified to 150 cars would be parked on this fairly busy site with a number of structures that you could see by the plans and also by what you saw from Google Earth. This proposal will add another driveway of traffic in a congested area without proper safety and without sidewalks on a busy highway. And I know many of these issues might come forward at the site plan application process, which is required and which has never been done before. And we don't know what the planning board will do. But as a use activity, this use activity engenders 150 cars on that spot. This proposed use, while limited in number of days, and I'm not sure we have an exact number presented or whether that'll be a condition of this board if you see fit to grant it, but the character will be changing on those days in which parking is allowed, from current residential with the I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residences, not to mention the one in the back that's also rented out. So there are 8 residences right in that immediate area, and it will change to have 150 cars coming and going, being parked late at night. And as I say, notwithstanding that it's been done for years, it's been done unlawfully. And you have to look at this as if this is a brand new application. I'd like to go forward and put parking on my property. The character will change. If this goes, as I say, the rest of the lots there's no reason they can't go. It threatens both public and private safety. There are more driveways without proper safety controls. And we do not believe it is legal under the driveway permit that's been granted onto a state highway for an expansion of a non-conforming use, but that's not necessarily for this board to take into effect. It would just be probably a required permit they would have to get. The threat to private health, safety, and welfare is more cars in the area, more cars late at night, headlights, gas, people, everything. That is a change in character. There are no specific lights presented in this application this evening, and while there's been testimony that there are lighted walkways and driveways, we don't see them and don't know what they are. The proposal is access to Mel's is across an existing easement for access to a single-family home, and people will theoretically go along that way, but there's really nothing to stop them and no enforcement to stop them from going the easy way, which is come down the driveway you drove up, walk to the front of the road, and walk along Charles Bancroft Highway, which is what they do today, and which is what creates a problem. Number two, will granted a variance be contrary to the spirit and intent of the ordinance? I've covered altering the character, increasing the nonconformity, threaten public safety and private safety. Section 1600 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Litchfield states that any nonconforming use may not be changed to another nonconforming use. So if you grant this, you are expanding a nonconforming use to another nonconforming use. That is contrary to the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance. Number three, will substantial justice be done by granting? And as you've stated in your first case, there has to be a balance. But the first issue is, will there be harm to the public? I think I've made the case that there will be substantial harm to the public if you begin to allow parking not only on this lot but any other lot. But in particular on this lot, because their driveway is immediately adjacent to the major walkway that comes from Mel's parking to the rear. If you look at the site plan, Mel's parking is on map 20, lot 17. It comes down a walkway in that area, and that is where pedestrians are. They walk down and they cross onto Mel's. Mel's has done a yeoman's effort to get all of these people so that they're not walking on Charles Bancroft Highway, and there's nothing to assure that all of these people coming from lot 13 and lot 12 will in some fashion cross not to the rear of the property as was asked by the zoning board, but along the front. And if it gets so you can't see it, or there are cars parking in that front yard area, there are going to be people walking on Charles Bancroft Highway. And that's going to be the harm to the public. And the outweighing the gain to the individual, they have perfect use of their property. Other than these 10 nights of the year, they want to increase the intensity of that use. And they want to do so at the risk to the public. Number four, granting a variance will not adversely affect abutting property values. As I say, there are other lots in the area that have residential use. And my client, while not directly abutting, is nearby and will be a residential use with contractors' principal use, and their activity will be adversely impacted as traffic comes and stops and tries to find parking in that area. People go to Mel's, they know parking. Mel's, as I said, has gone a long way to put flags, lighted, directions, police officers at the major entry, and now you have someone who wants to put 150 cars in there with none of that. This isn't going to work. So, and it didn't work in the past, as evidenced by that letter which the chief of police cited. So there's a lot of adverse impact on property values. Finally, are there special conditions to this property? Look at the 5 lots on the same side of the street, which are exactly the same. This one's a little bit larger, but basically they're about the same. They all have residential use. They all exist in that area, but now we're going to increase the intensity if you grant a variance. It may only pack them on 5 weekends, but that would have to be a condition of approval here. We don't know how many nights a year it's limited to, and that, if you grant this use and you don't put a condition on it, could expand. I don't think there's anything unique about their property. They have a reasonable use of their property. But if you found there was something unique because it abuts Mel's and it is a residential non-conforming use, then you have to look to the second question. Is there fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance and its enforcement? As I said, the purpose of this ordinance, that is the prohibition of parking in any zone in the town of Litchfield, is the town does not want parking lots. And they particularly don't want them in a residential area, which is what this is. Granted, it's all non-conforming, but they don't want parking lots as a separate or accessory use to a non-commercial use. Finally, the final criteria, is the proposed use reasonable? And we would argue that it does not, as presented this evening, does not make it a reasonable use of one's property in this area. Thank you.
Any questions for Attorney Hollis? Attorney Hollis, I don't know if you know this answer, but I think you mentioned it. Do you have any knowledge about Strawberry Lane, what that is? I know you.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy, are you gonna be speaking on this application?
No, I will say something, but it's absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an access easement. It's a private driveway. If you look at the plan, it leads up to the house in the back there. Behind Mel's, there's a house. I actually have an enlargement.
Oh, that map 20 lot 7 is a house? And that's used for those folks?
That's rental house. It's
Right.
owned by Mel's, but it is rented out.
So they're the ones who are using that Strawberry Lane as,
As their driveway access. That's
Driveway.
correct. And then it's a walkway access for the parking as well, to the back. The parking from Mel's primarily occurs all the way to the rear of the property onto map 20, lot 17, which is the large parcel in the back. And you can see the entry comes farther down Charles Bancroft driveway, but that is a access walkway that comes down there. They have an easement across that property.
and again, if you don't know, I'm just trying to understand that Strawberry Lane access, so that's an access easement, that's not
That's correct.
a right-of-way or anything
That's
else like
correct.
that. So that's just something that Mel's has given to those folks at map 20 lot 7 for them to get to and from their
That's
to and
correct.
from Charles Bancroft Highway from their
Yeah,
property.
it's historically been used as the driveway to that property before Mel's acquired it, and they've always used that as their driveway area.
As
And
an
then-
access
yeah,
easement,
that's
not as a
correct.
private right-of-way or road?
That's correct.
Okay.
Access easement.
So Mel's owns that lot 17,
Yes, I actually have an enlargement of that, which probably makes it a little easier.
goes all the way around.
Just pass these down. I have to tear them off, sorry.
So I do have one question. You mentioned 1600 where one non-conforming use was going to be changed to another
Yes.
non-conforming use. What was the first non-conforming use?
Residential.
In a commercial.
There's no commercial in that, in that building there? I
On
mean,
that
there's tractor
property?
trailers and there's,
There's a lot of activity, but I don't believe there's
We
any.
have enough.
Oh, everybody said.
so that's purely residential?
Not at this time.
I can't speak, the applicant would have to speak to
Yeah.
that, but it's, my understanding
Is
is
that
it's
purely
residential.
residential?
At this time.
There had been an original site plan for that site, but I can't speak that that use is any longer used, that use as set forth on the site plan is any longer being used. I leave that to the applicant.
That use was,
I do have a quick question. Strawberry Lane, should there be like a red dot there also to show that's an access route from 3A?
Well, Strawberry Lane is a driveway
Yeah,
access.
but that's what these other
Yes,
dots are too.
yes.
So it seems like there would be a red dot there.
There should,
Well, there is.
No, that's actually the entrance.
No, that's the Mel's
Oh,
entry.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're right, there
Not a
should
big
be
deal, I
a,
just was curious.
there should be a red dot there, my apologies.
No, no worries.
One more, so you have 3 right there.
So the only thing I'd like to add is Rick Charbonneau, 401 Charles Bank, Rough Highway. In this whole thing, there is some commercial, I believe, I don't know, on that property, but it's not compliant. They don't comply with this site plan. There's box trailers, there's things out in that yard that aren't in total compliance with the site plan that they originally approved. There's a lot of things that aren't right on that plan. If you ever pulled up the site plan that they have, you'd be horrified by what's on the site compared to what's approved.
Mr. Charbonneau, are you there? What are you doing with this property, map 20, lot 18? What uses are going in that? Trying to see what the character of the neighborhood is.
There's gonna Jolt Electric's going in there. They're gonna build a building there, and there's gonna be a fence company coming in. One of the other lots, the third lot we haven't sold yet, or haven't under agreement yet.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Those properties, the house will be in the front and the commercial will be in the back?
Yes,
That's the way they were designed, right?
yes.
Okay.
On all 3?
I know one of them, Jolt, is gonna have a house in the front, property in the back. You don't have to have a house and a building. The fence company is just gonna be just the fence company with a building.
Okay.
Any other questions for Attorney Hollis?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Andy Perlman, attorney with Prunier and Perlman of Nashua, here on behalf of the KBT Realty Trust, the Whitney Realty Trust, and Mel's Fenway Park, all collectively run the Nightmare New England Presents Spooky World every year for 20 to 24 nights in the fall. I will say this to both the present applicant and the next case that you have. We believe that their variance applications have to stand on their own. But we being Mel's, Fenway Park, Spooky World, we have a tentative agreement with our neighbors, so we're not opposing the applications. And we can answer any questions you have about the Mel's layout or anything on site, but we're not, at this time, we're not in opposition.
Sure, thank you. So I do have a couple of questions. It's been represented by the applicant that they are going to go from the back of their property and cross over that strawberry.
If you look on the site plan, you will,
Are you looking at this one so we know? Andy, which one are you looking at?
He's looking at the second one that we got. Do you want this one?
yeah, no,
So Andy, just if you wouldn't mind
yeah, no,
confirming.
I'll call it out. On the site plan that's labeled sheet 4 of 19, it's not the overview, but it's a kind of more isolated, close-up to Mel's.
Sheet 4?
In the bottom,
Yeah, yep, okay.
bottom right-hand corner, it says sheet 4 of 19.
So you see that this is the one that he's looking at?
In the middle of the plan, you will see a long rectangular building that says ticket booth. To the,
Wait, I haven't found the ticket booth yet. Okay, thank you.
ticket booth.
Oh, right there.
To the left of the ticket booth, it says rebuild existing stone dust walkway. All right, see the dash lines for the walkway?
Yep.
That walkway continues past that driveway, and it continues all the way down to Strawberry Lane, about where it says existing access easement, the word existing. The current plan is to fence the Bouchard property, but leave approximately 10-foot wide opening on the Bouchard side of the property where the walkway to the ticket booth will be, and fence the rest of it. Hopefully preventing people from using the Charles Bancroft Highway. That's the current plan that we have, that we are discussing.
So where it says rebuild existing stone dust walkway, that goes down towards their property, then towards Charles Bancroft Highway. And where does it go from there? Like, how is it gonna connect to them? So if I'm at their property, I leave the back of the property, and where do I go?
I only have one copy of this because I wasn't gonna get into this. But currently, our tentative agreement has you can see the, right? Yeah, here's another one you can pass around, right? Mel's is gonna install a fence toward the back of the Bouchard property. The Bouchard and Medina are gonna be installing a fence along their property line toward the front and along Charles Bancroft. And you can see the gap I have right here, it says access.
That's what I thought, right by that.
That
By that line.
aligns with the walkway that's shown on our plan, but it's not shown on your plan. You can see, better if you see it that way. And I hadn't planned to get into this level of detail because we haven't signed this agreement, but this is what we're talking about.
Attorney Pullman, didn't Mills come before this board not that long ago and request parking for across the street for overflow parking?
Yes.
So you have your parking on site, and then you were granted relief to have overflow parking across the street for a significant amount of parking there. Is that somewhere between 75 and 100 cars at least?
You are correct.
Okay, so
You're
now,
correct. I don't, wait a minute. At the moment, I actually forget if that's still being used across the street.
The question is, yes, if we need it, but we have not needed it last year. But it's there if we need it.
It's there, it's overflow parking.
so, thank you. So now you have parking on Mel's, you have overflow parking. Why does Mel feel a need that they need additional parking on people's residences?
We're not proposing this.
Okay, well, I didn't know if there was does Mel's have any parking concerns with the parking that they now have allocated for their use?
No.
Any other?
Well, you just went down the road I was
Yeah.
going. Because I was gonna say, does Mel's feel they have sufficient parking for this event
Yes.
on their own site?
Yes, the back lot behind Boucher Medina property, the Charlie McQuestion Farms, and then they mow down, that provides all the parking we need. On a really good weather night, on a Saturday night where it's just, all the conditions are perfect, we may have to go across the street for overflow, but typically not.
So would you say, in your opinion, that the parking that they provide is convenience because of the proximity to the ticketing booth?
100%. It's not necessary for Spooky World operations.
Do you have any idea how many spots are on the Mel's property if you exhausted all options?
I don't know off the top of my head, you're talking years ago, like, you know, we've been doing it since 2008, so I can't tell you that exactly off the top of my head, because we've never run out of parking before.
Because
My-
when
my
I
rec-
add up what I find on the sheet,
Yeah,
I'm at about 139.
no.
Okay.
We have 700 or 800 parking spaces with the backfield.
So, can I ask a question here?
Okay.
Where's the access to that backfield? Is it south of these,
Yes.
This is all that.
okay, so, this, the map that was highlighted with the access points with the driveways, it should have another red driveway south of the four, properties to access that
That whole
backfield.
back, yeah.
So that whole backfield is
This
used as
parking,
parking, and
yeah.
that's another,
Yep.
it's actually another driveway that's currently being used.
Yep. That's correct.
So that should have been highlighted. Okay.
Any other questions for Attorney Foreman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? I believe we're in opposition to the application.
Can I throw those back? Oh, you know what,
Anybody else with,
No, I don't need it. I can
anyone,
take it back if you want. but-
anyone else with questions? Did you want to make any final comments before we close public input?
Yes, I could just respond to some of
Absolutely.
the points that were brought up. I won't go back through the variance criteria because I've already made that argument. But I will just bring up a few particulars that was brought up. The issue of expanding a non-conforming use was claimed. We're here tonight to request a variance to cure the non-conforming. That is what we're asking for, is permission to do that. As was talked about, we have a tentative agreement with Mel's, and they said they are not for it, but they're not objecting for what that is worth. The claim that we're trying to leverage the prior use for our hardship, that is not the reason that was presented. It's to show that in the past, the issues from this have been limited. Granted, there was that letter from the police chief that I asked my client, and she doesn't remember ever seeing that. But that is part of what we're going to be going before the planning board for, is site plan review, to talk about issues like that.